Welcome, everybody. It gives me immense pleasure to kickstart our very first series for the year 2023 on UinDhi. The series is called Education Beyond Syllabus, and who better than Professor Chinmoy Kumar Ghosh to kickstart the series with us today? Professor Ghosh has done his schooling and undergraduation from Ramakrishna Mission, Narendrapur. He has retired from the Indira Gandhi National Open University, where he has inter alia held positions such as the Directors of Regional Services Division, which looks after the student support services in the entire nation, National Center of Innovations in Distance Education, and the Regional Center of West Bengal and Sikkim. He has taught physics at the Scottish Church College, Kolkata, and at the Indira Gandhi National Open University. He did his PhD from Calcutta University in thin solid films while working as a scholar of CSIR at the Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science. He has co-authored 11 books, 4 in the area of physics at the undergraduate level, 1 on innovations in distance learning, and 6 as volumes on general knowledge. He has more than 100 publications, primarily in the areas of physics and mathematics education and open and distance learning in the form of research papers, articles, and edited literature in national and international journals of repute. He has been holding memberships of the statutory bodies of different universities and academic associations. After retirement, he has served as a consultant at the National Institute of Open Schooling Center for Education Technology of IIT Kharagpur and is currently actively associated with several projects of the NCERT, which I believe stands for the National Council of Educational Research and Training. And his topic for the presentation today, I believe, is around the 4 pillars of learning recommended by the UNESCO Commission of Education for the 21st Century. So I'm going to hand the space over to Professor Ghosh, and thank you very much for coming along and kickstarting the series on UinDhi with us. So all yours now. Over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Ganguly, for this splendid opportunity. I really feel privileged for getting this opportunity, which you say kickstarting your this particular kind of enterprise with UinDhi. And I would like to speak on, as I told, as was told to you, that it is on learning the treasure within. The stress is on the word learning, not teaching. The stress is on the word learning the treasure within, which actually happens to be the topic of the UNESCO Commission for Education held in 1996 in Paris, and that was supposed to have given a direction to the nature of education in the 21st century. We are already 23 years into it, and so we have got a feel of how education is evolving in our country as well as globally. So I'd like to share some of my thoughts on this, and I once again thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. Let me share the screen as I'll be using this PowerPoint presentation. As I told you, this particular topic I have borrowed from the title of the UNESCO Commission for Education in the 21st Century held in Paris in 1996, Learning the Treasure Within. Now, this is the symbol of the learner, the mythological learner Eklavya, who was a very, very dedicated learner, and he was denied teaching by his Guru Dronacharya for certain reasons, which I don't want to elaborate here. We are all aware of that. But then he didn't lose heart. What he did, he prepared a bust of Dronacharya and was drawing inspiration from that and was taking lessons. And then how was he evaluated? He was asked to give his right thumb. Now the present day Eklavya should get every right for teaching, for being taught, and he also has every right to be evaluated. He need not be the quintessential learner who goes to the school during a certain period of his life and then attends senior school or junior college, whatever you say that, and then attends college and then the university stage for his secondary, senior secondary, tertiary education, and so on and so forth. He may be seeking other avenues like vocational avenues. He may be seeking training in skill education. He may be seeking training in arts or in different kind of knowledge which is presented to us. So this eklavya should not be denied teaching. He has every right to be taught and he has every right to be evaluated properly. He should not be asked to be given his right thumb. And our focus will be on this learner. The focus of my talk also will be on this particular kind of learner and the way the learners manifest themselves in the society, in the overall scenario of education. Now, this particular topic, learning the treasure within, impresses me very much because it echoes the voice of none other than Swami Vivekananda, who said that education is a manifestation of perfection already in man. Manifestation of perfection already in man, and try to relate that with the topic, learning the treasure within. He says that each soul is potentially divine, and our goal is to manifest that divinity within us. And when does he say that? That was in 1894, 102 years before the UNESCO Commission was held. And it was rightly pointed out by the chairperson of that UNESCO Commission that this topic echoes the voice of Swami Vivekananda. Now, the issues which I have selected for the treasure hunt, because it's a very vast topic, and as I told you that I'm going to have the canvas of the entire learners, the entire gamut of learners. So I have picked up, for the constraints of time, I've picked up a few, I should say, features of treasure hunt. First is holistic approach to education, development of scientific temper, which, among other things, is enshrined in Indian Constitution as a duty of citizen, to appreciate the intrinsic value of nature, judicious use of ICT, and unity in diversity. Well, these are the topics which I have selected. There can be many more, and I'm not saying or I'm not claiming that my selection of topic is absolutely perfect. There are many areas where you can trade to describe this treasure hunt, which a learner should be exposed to. Now, first, this holistic approach towards education. So here I want to read out the paragraph 1 of Article 26 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1994, which states that everyone has the right to education. Education shall be free at least in the elementary and fundamental stages. Higher education shall be equally accessible to all on the basis of merit. So education should be free at least at the elementary and fundamental stages. So this is very crucial. And higher education shall be accessible based on merit. And you can see Federico Mayer on the screen, the chairperson of the UNESCO Commission for Education, who says that the train of education must pass every individual station many times. The crucial word here is many. Now, the train of education can pass through my station, but I may miss that train for one reason or the other. It can be my family reason, it can be the constraints of other requirements, my job requirements. Maybe I'm working when I'm thinking of taking access to education, and I have taken access, I've taken admission to some course, but due to the priorities of the job, I get stuck up somewhere, sometime. So the word many is very crucial. The train of education must pass every individual station many times. If I miss a train once, that should not be the end of road for education for myself. And that is how we'll have to orient ourselves. I can be a dropout for some reason or other. I remember when I was at Indira Gandhi National Open University, I used to go for morning walk. And IGNOU has a vast campus in Delhi. But just outside the campus, you have the village Maidangadi. And particularly during this summertime, we are having the onset of summer in India now. Now, the big trucks water load will come, and the villagers, particularly the young boys and girls, will form a queue with buckets for carrying water. So where is the time for them to go to the school? And if those young children can carry, there would be a lot of commotion for themselves getting the water. And if they can manage to get 2 buckets of water for their home, that's a great accomplishment for them. And on the other hand, if they fail to do that, they may be thrashed by their parents. That is how the society runs in our country. So we should be thinking for avenues for education for such children, for such unprivileged children. So that's why this particular comment is very crucial. The train of education must pass every individual station many times. And I think because at Indira Gandhi National Open University, even as students, we have found many dropouts who have left studies for some reason or the other, but have then come back for seeking higher education. And for development, as you all will agree with me, education is the key. And having said this, I come to the recommendations of the UNESCO Commission for Education for the 21st century. The first important recommendation is let there be a paradigm shift from teaching to learning. Teaching to learning. In fact, in my mother tongue, Bangla, there are 2 words, shikhon and shikshan. Shikhon or shikhon. Now, shikshan is teaching and shikhon is learning. We should be able to distinguish between them. And then what it really means that when you are developing a curriculum, now we have a tendency to use the words curriculum and syllabus interchangeably. They are indeed different. There are a lot of similarities, but the word curriculum has got a tendency to see the implementation aspect of the syllabus, and then it has interaction with so many things. It has interactions in the classroom, beyond the classroom, with the society, with my experience, because experiential learning is very important. And in order to develop a curriculum, in fact, that there would be a lot of expert committees, meetings, and so on, which hands out the curriculum, and the teacher teaches that curriculum based on that curriculum. Now, we seldom get to see the representation of the learners in that expert committee. Now, what this hints at that you may not be taking a class 5 student and make him sit with the experts for developing the curriculum, but the experience of the class 5 students should be presented properly. They should have a voice when the curriculum for class 5 is being developed. So this is what it means. This is one of the aspects which I want to emphasize when we say that let there be a paradigm shift from teaching to learning. And learning is the treasure within. It is already there. In fact, I remember the example of Michelangelo sculpting. In fact, during the Renaissance period, in fact, you will be finding several wandering masons. Wandering means WANDER, wandering masons through the entire continent of Europe. And in different places, you will see structures created by them. Now, Michelangelo, as a child, used to be with them, and he used to help the masons in their work. But then at times he will go away from the sites and would just start doing his work independently. And that's how he got the famous structure, Head of Brutus. And when that fine structure came up, the head of Brutus of Michelangelo. In fact, his father was there, his other relatives were there, and they all felt that the carvings in the stone which he has made to get that head of Brutus had already been there. So he had only perfected it, manifestation of perfection already in man. The treasure was already there and it was perfected by Michelangelo. But this is about, say, an inanimate structure, even for animate objects or even for any aspect of learning which we imbibe, which we for where we achieve perfection, that is already within us. And how to cultivate that, how to nurture that. Say, when Virat Kohli plays a fantastic cover drive, it's like a poetry in motion. We all get enthralled by seeing that kind of a cover drive. But all such cover drive does not end up at the boundary. Some may end up at the hand of a fielder as a catch. So does that mean the perfection was not there? Now, this manifestation of perfection depends on so many things. I have seen several cancer survivors among my relatives, my friends, and I'm really grateful to the blessings of the Almighty that they have won the battle against cancer. But then I feel that several of them has lost the battle against cancer. So now the doctors, perhaps who had undertaken the surgery, so did they lack perfection? No, that depends on several other factors. The factors being the particular condition when the disease has got diagnosed, the facilities, the way the different physical condition of the patient had interacted with the situation at that time. So the perfection is already there. It has to be manifested. It time and again reminds us of Swami Vivekananda's saying that it's the manifestation of perfection, and which really relates with the topic learning the treasure within. Now, among other things, it came out with 4 recommendations: learning to know, learning to be, learning to do, and learning to live together. So these were the 4 pillars of learning. Learning to know, in fact, as I said at the very beginning, that a child goes to the school and learns from the teachers, definitely from the textbooks, from the environment, and so on and so forth. But then there are other ways of learning, and this has to be cultivated. He or she has to learn from the society. He or she has to learn from experience. In our childhood, in science class, we were taught the water cycle. And then when this question on water cycle will come in the examination paper, who will secure good marks? Who will be able to explain that? And among other things, who will be able to draw a very good diagram? The diagram has everything. It will have the diagram of a pond, the sun shining, and the scorching rays of sun is taking the water vapor out from the pond, and the water vapor is getting into the formation of cloud, and rains coming down from the cloud. Absolutely fine. But is it always necessary to teach water cycle in a single day? Why can't I take my students, maybe in a rural area, it would be more applicable, that you take them by the side of water bodies. Water bodies still exist in the rural part of the country, may not be to that extent in the urban part of the country. So you take them along the water bodies and you show them that water is there. But come May and June, and the water will disappear. And by the end of June, water will be coming back, but through rains. So what all happened? Let them experience the process, what all happened. And this is something which I term as experiential learning. Experiential learning. So there are several sources. And of course, these days, internet is a treasure. And it's a responsibility of the guardians as well as the teachers to tell the learners and their words that what should be the best way to utilize this facility. So the textbooks and the classroom are not the only sources of knowledge. They can be acquired from several areas, and the learner should be made aware of that. Now, learning to be, that is very important. I have to become myself. I have to become myself. Ramakrishna Paramahansadev used to say that in Bangla, of course, আমরা ভাবের ঘরে চুরি করি. He has an uncanny knack of making statements which we call without juktakkar. Very simple statements. In his statements, you'll never find juktakkar. Joto mot toto poth. So coming back to আমরা ভাবের ঘরে চুরি করি, that is, we perform theft in our realm of thought. Now, if I do a theft in somebody's house, I get caught and I get jailed. But if I do a theft in my realm of thought, now what is meant by doing theft in my realm of thought? That I'm thinking something, but I'm acting otherwise. So I don't get caught. And even if I get caught, I don't have to serve a term at the prison. I have been attending a seminar way back, I think sometime around 1995, 1996. And the topic of the seminar was education for all. And very erudite scholars had come to deliver it in this seminar. And in course of the seminar, tea was being served. And who was serving the tea? You will be surprised to know that a young boy whose age was hardly 7 or 8 was made to serve tea for the participants who are deliberating on education for all. So we have not learned to be.
Yeah.
We have not learned to be. And when I talk about experiential learning, I'll also emphasize on that little later. But I, being a student of physics, I get pained by seeing a certain situation regarding my subject all these days, that the emphasis is shifting more towards theoretical.
Yeah.
The practical classes, practical examinations are being taken for granted. And rather, I may be permitted to say that subjects like physics, particularly physics, not that much aware about chemistry and biology, but physics is gradually getting relegated as a theoretical subject. And the prime reason behind it is that the big examination, joint entrance examination for entering into engineering and medical courses, they test your theoretical knowledge only, no practical knowledge, and the students do not give emphasis on practical knowledge. And that's why when it comes to training in practical, now I have been holding workshops for generating interest in physics practical in several ways. And in one such workshop, I was just discussing a very simple experiment, verification of Ohm's law. Now, the students, when they are asked to draw the table, they have to present the data in tabular form. Now, they are unable to draw the table. So I said that you be yourself, whatever you're thinking you want to present, just present it in the form of a table. Again, with my guidance, they are able to draw the table, but they are not able to write the inference. They have done the experiment, they have drawn the graph, and they have found that it's the current versus voltage graph is a straight line passing through the origin, all fine. Now, then I asked them that suppose you are asked to prove a theorem in geometry, that such and such conditions are given, prove that triangle ABC and triangle DEF are congruent. Now, how do you end it? Now we will do everything, and finally we apply the norms of congruence, and when we find that all the norms are satisfied, we say that the triangle ABC and AD are congruent. I said, fine. So similarly, you say, you must keep some room in your table to say that I have drawn this I versus V graph and I found that it is passing through the origin. So Ohm's law stands verified. Now, when it comes to being practical, they really don't tend to become themselves. So this is one particular area. There can be several other situations. And I think it is most aptly described by Ramakrishna Dev's comment that we perform theft in our realm of thought. So if we cease to do that, doing theft in our realm of thought, we shall be learning to be.
Yeah.
Learning to do.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that's a very profound thought that you put out, which is like learning to be. But do you feel, in your experience of so many years of teaching and being a student yourself, Do you feel learning to be at some level is reprimanded or penalized by the society?
Yes, you are right. You are right. So this is something which you are indicating about the personal integrity, or let me talk about scientific integrity.
Mm.
Now, I remember again of a situation that again an experiment in physics, and at that time you heard that I was teaching at Scottish Church College, and we were. I'm trying to answer your question. We were teaching higher secondary students, and there was an experiment for determination of specific gravity of copper sulfate solution. I distinctly remember, and in every practical class, we were two teachers, and my partner was quite a senior teacher, much senior to me. And of course, the specific gravity of copper sulfate solution comes out to be around 1.09 or so. Now, one student has obtained specific gravity of copper sulfate solution as 32.7,
Wow.
and he brought his practical exercise book.
Yeah.
And my the reprimanded word, or not getting the correct assessment from the society, but with due respect to my senior partner, he just took the copy and almost was trying to throw it.
Oh, no.
And he just, without looking into it, he said, just repeat.
Yeah.
I'm not going to see what you have done. But that boy was very much keen to show his work, and my senior partner was not at all willing to see it. Well, I don't want to see. When he was almost going to throw away the particular worksheet
Mm.
he had provided to the teacher. So he was a senior teacher, so I was a little hesitant to tell him, and that was, I think, at the initial stages of my joining the college. But still, I was very much keen to know what actually has gone wrong, because the student was after us. And then I said, sir, let us see what he has done. And I asked the student to come, and I said that, do you know what's the specific gravity of mercury? He knew, 13.6. So then I told that in that particular beaker, which was holding the copper sulfate solution, if there was mercury, which would have been heavier? He said mercury would have definitely been heavier. But then I said that then, but as per your calculation, your copper sulfate solution is 2.5 times heavier than mercury.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh, he said, right, but I cannot find out where I have committed mistake. So then I had seen his script. No, he was not a good student. He This thought process has not come to his mind. He was not, I should say, a very brilliant student. He had indications of being a good student, and this particular thing shows. Now the formula is, I should have shown it by writing. SC, S means specific gravity, C as a suffix.
Yeah.
S corrected is equal to SO, O means observed, into rho T, T again suffix. Rho means density of water,
Yeah.
and T is at T degree centigrade, at room at T degree centigrade. Now he has obtained S observed as something like 1.09. Density of water is almost 1 gram per cc, and room temperature is 30 degrees centigrade. Now the book he was following, there was a printing mistake. This rho t does not appear as suffix. It
Okay.
appeared just after rho,
Okay.
which appeared as rho into t.
Multiplication. Yeah.
He should have applied his mind that it should not be rho into t, because then the dimension specific gravity is a dimensionless quantity, and the whole thing goes haywire.
Yeah.
He has not thought about it. That's why I'm saying that he was perhaps not a good student. He was not a brilliant student. But then I cannot help appreciate his honesty,
Yeah.
scientific honesty.
Yeah.
But see, he was reprimanded. He was scolded by the teacher. Now, what happens? He has multiplied 1.09 with density was perhaps 0.9999 something, which is almost equal to 1, into 30, and you multiply 1.09 with 30, it comes to 32.7.
Yeah.
So he was innocent enough to present that.
Mm.
So he had learned to be.
Yes.
But perhaps, when I'm not taking any credit, but had I not intervened, well, his assessment would have been like that. That he has
not good enough, and that entire thing would have some
Right,
problem.
right. And same thing keeps happening in the broader evaluation in an examination also.
Yeah.
So I have seen some students, I've been examining practicals, I've seen students doing very good experiments, but due to some reason or other,
Mm,
say, as you were telling that it's raining there. Now, suppose you do an experiment on the leakage of a capacitor.
mm,
It will definitely not give the right kind of result. But what a student should be able to do, he should be able to infer
mm,
why it has so happened. He
mm,
should not be shaky in presenting the data which he has observed.
mm.
Otherwise, what should I do when I go to the witness box? I'll give a false witness. I have witnessed something. I have seen something with my own God-gifted eyes.
Mm.
So why I'm so scared to present it? Why I'm so scared to note it? So this is what I mean by learning to be.
That's very
So
beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's interesting because most people kind of fault at that because they feel if they keep under the facade and not express or not be, they are okay. So, which is why I think learning is such an important aspect, and which is why this talk is so important. So, yeah, I'll let you carry on.
And please feel free to intervene, because
Yeah, yeah,
I think with your intervention, I think I got the scope of giving the explanation a new dimension. Now, learning to do, again, I'll always tell from my personal experience. In fact, I was going to different schools. In fact, again, Indira Gandhi National Open University has given us this opportunity. Uh, Among other things, a particular course on primary education was being launched. And as you know that IGNOU has to depend on other institutions for having their centers.
yeah.
And I was going to different centers, rather different primary institutions for having a center. And I had to see the classroom situation and even how the students are being taught. And it was a mathematics class, I remember, of standard 3. And the teacher was teaching measurement of length by metric system. So I asked the teacher, what is the status of your students? He said that they are very well prepared. They're going to appear for a test perhaps the next day. I'm just taking a revision. I said, fine. So I asked the students for the relation between a meter and a kilometer, and everybody answered perfectly that 1,000 meter is equal to 1 kilometer. What's the relation between a meter and a centimeter? 100 centimeter is equal to
1 week.
1 meter. And that school as was situated in the outskirts of a city, and I was naturally interested to know that how they commute day in and day out. And in that connection, I asked them that how far is your home from the school? Now no hands are getting raised up. Uh, uh, what is the length of the classroom? No hands are getting raised up. How many centimeters is my pen? No hands are getting
Yeah.
raised up. And then I had the doubt. And then I asked the student, do you know how much is a meter? I asked them that show by your body language this much or this much or this much. No,
Mm.
nobody knew how much is a meter. It can be 1 or 2 centimeters less or 1 or 2 centimeters more.
Mhm.
Just show by your body language how much is a meter.
Mm.
So nobody was aware how much is a
Meter.
meter. So, uh, so this is what is required, because they are unable to apply the knowledge they
Knowledge.
acquire, and that is very important. This particular pillar of learning to
Do.
do.
Mm.
Similarly, this particular feature, and that is so important in our country, learning to live together. Of course, living together has a different connotation.
Yeah.
Uh, and here also I'll cite an example, which again a real life example. I was traveling in a bus from Delhi to Jaipur along the expressway, and at that time the expressway had not come up in the way you see it now.
Okay.
And there was at some stage it was found that there was a traffic jam, and the traffic jam was caused by some cattles coming into the expressway. So naturally there were some foreign travelers, and they were quite irritated, and they were asking that how can there be uh, cattles on the expressway. And then I said that it is the particular feature of this problem is impregnated in Indian culture and tradition. On our expressway, you will be finding Marutis as well as bullock carts. So uh, that is not desirable. But then
No,
in
but
Indian
it is
country,
what the culture is. It's what the country is. That is
right, right. So in Indian condition, you come across so many situations where you'll have to
live together. And I think
practice. You'll have to practice
living.
learning to live together.
I think the best example that I can think of is if you travel through Varanasi. Like
Mhm.
if you have all the cattles and and you have the rickshaws going through those narrow lanes, and then you don't really hit any cow or anyone because they are holy. So you really have to wait for them to get to the side so that you can move. And it's quite a remarkable thing to see how you navigate with the cattles and
Uh,
the
uh,
stuff.
this was one of the things which impressed very much Mark Twain.
Mm,
Varanasi happens to be his most favorite city.
mm,
You might be knowing. So these are the four pillars of learning on which the treasure hunt should depend. Uh, and as I was telling you, acquiring knowledge has three dimensions. Sir Francis Bacon had said more than 3 centuries ago that knowledge is power. So we have to be empowered by way of knowledge. And knowledge has three dimensions: dissemination of the acquired knowledge, which takes place through the college university system, and several other systems which I discussed while talking about learning to learn. Creation of new knowledge by way of research. Creation of new knowledge by way of research. And when I say research, I'm doing research means perhaps I'm pursuing some degree.
yeah.
I'm pursuing a PhD degree.
Mm,
But that should not be the overall explanation of research or overall approach towards research.
true.
A teacher, when he or she goes to the classroom, now he is researching. Every day he is taking up a new topic. Every year he is facing a new batch and a new challenge. So it should be visualized like that. His teaching should be, again, an exercise in doing a kind of a research.
Mm,
Say when a maestro like Satyajit Ray, now he goes for his casting. In fact, his famous film Pather Panchali, uh, the song of the road, which had really put India on the world map of cinema. Now, there was a character who has seen the film, Indi Thakurani, a very old, sickly lady.
mm,
And in order to do the casting, he had to do a lot of research. In order to find a particular mm, person who will do the character, particular boy who will do the character of Opu, the main protagonist, uh, he had to do a lot of research. Now, for Indi Thakurani, uh, he almost finally had to go to a brothel and pick up that lady and who had performed in an excellent manner. I mean, that's a different. It's an out of the world experience. So that cannot happen unless you do
research.
research.
Yeah.
Unless you do
And
research.
research is like in every sphere, like every single person, like we are all like researchers in our own way, not necessarily in an educational system, but you have to do research. Otherwise, you're not going to get the pulse of what you're really looking for and what is it. Even to refine your own knowledge, I think research is like the key.
I remember. I should have remembered the name. Coach of Sergei Bubka. Now
Mm,
we remember the athlete Sergei Bubka had hold the record of pole vault for 6 long years.
mm,
Now, I'm sorry, I'm unable to recollect the name of his coach. Now, in pole fault is quite an apt example in physics in transformation or conversion of energy. It is the athlete starts with kinetic energy, he runs, and then he uses that stick, which is now made of fiberglass. So he uses the elastic energy of the fiberglass pole. He bends the pole and gets maximum amount of elastic energy, and this kinetic energy and elastic energy combined gets converted into potential energy, and by way of which he acquires height.
yeah.
Now Bupka was very stockily built. He could not run fast. Well, he could not run as fast as was desired by his coach. But he had tremendously strong biceps. So he was explained by his coach that these are your strengths. And it is not that the kinetic energy has to be maximum, but the kinetic energy plus elastic energy should be maximum. Kinetic energy plus elastic energy should be maximum. So you optimize your kinetic energy so that you have a kind of an elastic energy which combined with the kinetic, you have that kind of elastic energy of the fiber which combined with the kinetic energy gives you the maximum potential energy. And for that he did research. He researched using the entire the data regarding the physical prowess of Sergei Bubka. He took the all data about his metabolism and had worked out that.
Mm.
Now, you can ask that why the coach could not perform. Now, the idea is the athlete would perform as per the dictates of the coach, but the coach had framed the dictates based on a serious research.
Yes.
And which Sergei Bubka executed and which made him the winner for 6 long years. So in every such thing, you have to do
Research. Yeah.
And that is creation of new knowledge. Rajinikanth Sen, another famous poet, and particularly his songs have stood the test of time, very much like that of Tagore. And he died at a very young age of 45. He was born in the year 1865, died in 1910. And towards the fag end of his life, he was very much keen to sing. Of course, he was not a professional singer, but he will sing his own songs sitting with his children using the harmonium. But then he got affected by the dreaded disease of cancer, and during the last 7-8 months of his life, he was unable to sing. And then he was staying in undivided Bengal in Rajshahi, and he was brought to Kolkata for his treatment. And during that stage, he wrote a song which says, of course, in Bangla, আমাকে সকল রকমে কাঙাল করিয়া দর্প করিছে চুর. You have made me like a beggar, and you are taking away my pride. Or so, and there, see, we call something called, which Ramakrishna Paramahansadev also used to say, ahoituki bhakti, devotion without reason. We pray to God that give me this, give me that, but devotion without reason. So I have not, I seldom, it is very difficult to find a better example of ahoituki bhakti than what we see in Rajinikanth Sen's writing in that particular song, where there is a line, there are 2 lines, Bhabitam ami likhi buji besh. I used to think that I write and I understand things so well. Bhabitam ami likhi buji besh. Amar songit bhalobashe desh. My song is loved by people all around the country. Bujia doyal ব্যাধি দূর মোরে. But more than me, it was understood by doyal. Doyal means one who is kind, one who is the epitome of kindness, that is the God. Bujia doyal ব্যাধি দিল মোরে had given me the disease. বেদনা দিল প্রচুর. And he is hinting about his Vedana means pain. And the main pain is not the physical pain, but the pain of not being able to sing. Vedana dilo prochur, আমাকে সকল রকমে কাঙাল করিয়া দর্প করিছে চুর. Now, writing this particular line at that particular stage of one's life is remarkable.
Yeah.
And this cannot happen without research. So research means not really, well, I see a tendency among students that they would like to know 101 rules. And maybe I have a drawback. I am so unfamiliar about the rules, that how many months of coursework, how many particular credits of course which you have to do before actually writing the proposal, how to write the proposal, how to, all these things are required. But that should not be the prime concern. Like when I did my PhD, of course, I should not say that I did degree, but that was perhaps not my prime concern. My prime concern was to solve a problem. And in the process of solving a problem, of course, I acquire
A degree.
a degree.
Yeah.
If it is said that I'm trying to give a message through my talk, as regards research, I just two things: that every act of our life, we do research.
That's true. I agree with
like
that totally.
And that essence should not be lost when we are in the process of acquiring a degree like PhD.
Yeah.
And the third dimension is the extension dimension of knowledge. That is, again, comes to applying the acquired knowledge in real life situation, because without that, knowledge has got really no meaning. So I've only talked about holistic approach towards education. Development of scientific temper, as I said, that it is enshrined in the constitution of our country as a duty of citizen. Now, what does it really mean? Now, scientific temper is not the monopoly of a student of science or a researcher in science or a teacher in science. It's a way of life. It's a way of life. And again, it comes to observing things and questioning. Like Albert Einstein had said that he who cannot wonder, cannot feel curious about things around him, is as good as dead, a snuffed out candle. As a young boy, he would question that why the magnetic needle is always pointing in a particular direction. I am traveling at a certain speed, and by my side, if a vehicle travels at the same speed, it appears to be at rest. It happens a number of times. We've seen local trains in Kolkata. Two trains are traveling on parallel paths, and the other one is appearing to be stationary. Now, he asks that if I go on increasing my speed and if I attain the speed of light, will light become stationary? And these were the kind of questions, particularly the second school which he had attended, the Luitpold Gymnasium. And this would irritate his teachers, so much so that his father had to be summoned by the principal, and his father was told that your son does not have a future. Now, what an assessment about a person who later came to be known as the person of the century by opinion poll by the Times Magazine. Albert Einstein was voted as the person of the century. So, so what an assessment was made about him. So it's all about questioning. Like Thomas Alva Edison had so many patents, so many discoveries he made, and he used to say that, see, everything is based on assumptions. In fact, like I'm feeling tempted to say this organization that you can think of having a discussion on these four terms: assumptions, postulates, hypothesis, and approximations. Like these terms are used quite interchangeably.
Yes.
It is when I say that I'm dropping a ball from a height of 1 kilometer, we assume that g remains to be constant. By doing a calculation, we can say that the value of g 1 kilometer above the ground and on the surface of the ground are almost the same, but they are not actually same. So whether this is an assumption or an approximation, or is it a hypothesis? So these words are very similar, and Thomas Alva Edison was quite concerned about them, and so he used to say that everything is based on some assumption. You have to start from some assumption.
Yeah.
And you challenge those assumptions continuously. Don't have a preset or prejudiced mind. Let the windows of your mind be always open. And it is also related to the spirit of research, patience and perseverance. Patience and perseverance pays, and nothing is final. Like nothing in science or even in any other kind of knowledge, it should not end in a fairy tale way that they lived happily ever after.
It never does. It's always an ongoing process. I think for those
it's
who
an ongoing process.
For those who feel that this is it, that's like, no, there is a lot more to it. This is the start, probably.
So these 5 points spelled out by Thomas Alva Edison brings out the hallmark of scientific temper, according to me. Now, on your screen, you see Tagore, Swami Vivekananda, and Gandhiji. They were not scientists, but they had raised questions. I think many of us have gone to Shantiniketan, quite a favorite resort from Kolkata, and for several reasons, and particularly the Gurudev connection. Now, among other things, people definitely go to see the Rabindra Bhavan, the main museum there. And annexed with the Rabindra Bhavan is a small library.
Yeah.
And this library was getting digitized at a particular time, and I had the privilege of visiting the library. And that library contains, among other things, most of the books read by Tagore.
Okay.
And in every book, almost in every page, he has made comments. It really gives me goosebumps to see his handwriting. And the books, the content of the books along with his comments are getting digitized. Now, there was a book on science by a famous science writer of that time, Charuchandra Bhattacharya, and there was a chapter on electromagnet where Tagore writes in his own handwriting, খুব জটিল বিষয় না দেখলে বোঝার উপায় নেই. It's a complicated matter. I don't believe it unless I see it. So this is scientific temper. I don't believe it unless I see it. Swami Vivekananda had raised a very vital question. Whosoever sage he was meeting, he met the father of Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, Maharishi Devendranath Thakur. Have you seen God? Well, I'm not talking about any religious aspect or any such thing, but I just would like you to appreciate the directness of the question. There is no indirectness. The directness of the question, have you seen God? And everywhere he was getting the answer in negative, but first time he gets the answer in affirmative at Dakshineshwar from Thakur Ramakrishna Dev. And Pat comes the next question, can you show me? So I only request you to appreciate the directness of the question, because questioning skills is very much on the way. And we get a lot of answering skills. We get to learn a lot of answering skills. All the guidebooks which are there in the college street. In fact, after COVID, this going to the college street and walking through that particular lane had been a very favorite pastime for me. So during COVID, since due to the restrictions, I could not go. The first time I had gone there and I was walking and I was shocked. At that time, most of the stalls would be having famous books second hand. They would be knowing the price of the books also. They will not let you have a book at a very throwaway price. But instead of them, now we have all sorts of guidebooks. Even IGNOU guidebook for B.Ed entrance examination. I am not knowing. I do not know that there is such a guidebook. So they are written very meticulously. I really appreciate the persons who have written them, because but they teach you only answering skills.
Yeah.
They don't teach you questioning skills. Like when I tell a very imaginary story that one day question made with answer and they had a very big fight, who is bigger, and the answer said that you serve no purpose, people come after me, they want to get the answers. But then the question had to say only one thing, that had I not been there, you would not have existed. You exist only because I am there. I remember one of my mathematics teachers that when I was able to solve any good problem, he used to say, fine, I appreciate you, but try to appreciate the brilliance of the person who had created the problem, who had created the question. So this questioning skills is an art, and this definitely enhances scientific temper. Gandhiji had never performed experiments in any laboratory, but he had performed experiments with human beings, his experiments with truth. So he had raised questions from the social and human life and had tried to find solutions to them. And this is something about science, that science, in one hand, it has the penicillin, and another hand, it has the atom bomb. And this is aptly revealed by what Richard Feynman says, that if we make good things, it is not only to the credit of science, it is also to the credit of the moral choice which led us to the good work. Scientific knowledge is an enabling power to do either good or bad, but it does not carry instructions on how to use it. And questioning becomes extremely important there. Questioning becomes extremely important there. The entire history of the world would have changed had Franklin Roosevelt not passed away before the Second World War, and Harry Truman taking the presidency. And you know, the rest is history. The what devastation was caused by the two atomic bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and there are several such other examples. So that's why I say that science is secular. Science is secular, and this is one of the reasons that we should be developing scientific temper. And not only that, the impact of science and technology on society can only be felt when it benefits the common man. You can see R.K. Lakshman's common man here. So unless I get to have the application of science, I get to know the application of science. So the questioning part in about understanding something, if it is science, fine. Even if it is not science, the questioning aspect. And then when I have understood it, when I have acquired it, then I should be able to apply that. Again, I'll be talking about a real life example. You can see the diagram of just three pulleys carrying three weights, but it is very significant to me. In fact, this particular setup is used for verifying what is called the parallelogram law of forces. Now, in Indira Gandhi National Open University, there are several diverse courses, and one of them is on nursing. And in nursing, they have to do lot many experiments on applied sciences, physics, chemistry, botany, zoology, physiology. There are several experiments on applied sciences, and this was one of the experiments in physics. And as you know, IGNOU does not have its own establishment. It has to go to different establishments for seeking their infrastructure so that the students are able to perform the experiment. We hire their laboratories. No laboratory was having this setup. Now, in one of the laboratories, I had a discussion with them. I had a friend there also who was a teacher of physics. And then together we did this setup very easily. We used some corks, which we used as makeshift pulleys, and we used the string. And then we picked up weight from the weight boxes and we could do the setup. And after doing the setup, because initially they said that in West Bengal, there is a tendency to first say, hobe na, it will not happen.
That's true.
And then when we made it happen, naturally we were feeling very elated. And I was about 35 years younger at that time. So naturally we are feeling very elated that, see,
Great accomplishment,
we have been able to do this setup. And when I was just basking in the glory of, I should say, some kind of a pseudo pride. But I'm particularly using the word, using the prefix pseudo before pride, a kind of pseudo pride. I heard some of the girls who are the students whispering at my back that, see, this is the arrangement we use for giving traction to the orthopedic patients. Believe me, I never felt so ashamed in life. Believe me. I know the setup of this experiment, I know the theory of this experiment, but I am unaware of its application, which these girls who have not studied science after class 6 or 7, but they know that this is applied for orthopedic patients, giving traction to orthopedic patients. So this is where science actually triumphs. You have to make it applicable to the real life situations. So this is where I talk about the extension dimension of knowledge. I just wanted to present this Chinese classic saying that extension of knowledge consists in investigation of things. When things are investigated, knowledge is extended. When knowledge is extended, mind is elevated. When mind is elevated, personal life is deepened. When the personal life is deepened, the family will be regulated. And when the family is regulated, the state will be in order. And when the state is in order, there will be peace on earth. So this is a great Chinese saying translated into English. Now, another aspect of learning is to appreciate the intrinsic value of nature. We often, again, have a tendency to confuse between the terms. And naturally, I'll be talking about environment. And again, these days, environmental studies is very important. It has become a part and parcel of every curriculum. In fact, there has not been any kind of environmental degradation has to be a kind of declaration given before every film these days. Now, we have a tendency to, again, use the word nature and environment interchangeably.
Yeah.
Nature is omnipresent, but environment is us. That is the interaction of us, the human or even the animate and the inanimate objects with nature makes it what is known as environment, and it has several intrinsic values. And you have to appreciate that intrinsic value of nature, which definitely manifests itself to you so many times in the form of beauty. Like recently, you might have seen the occultation of Venus and it coming out behind the moon and creating a very symmetrical face, like a smiling face. The total solar eclipse, it has happened during the recent times. It has happened 4 times over India. Again, it would happen in 2168, perhaps. It had happened on 16th of February 1980, 24th of October 1995, 10th of August 1999, and 22nd of July, 22nd of July 2009. And I have observed all of them. Apart from doing any scientific experiment with that, I'm not going to elaborate on that. It presents an excellent cosmic spectacle, something very, very unknown. You see the unknown sun. So, like that, when you see the aurora in the southern hemisphere, when you see just the setting and rising sun, so these are beauties of nature. But that is, apart from that, there is something which perhaps we miss when we talk about the intrinsic value of nature. Like, see, anything we see, again, as a student of physics, I should say that it is conversion of energy. Like I'm speaking, my voice is getting converted into some kind of an energy, and it is getting transmitted there, it is getting received, and it is manifesting itself again in some other form of energy from where it is getting converted into sound energy. So energy conversion is taking place. And one important aspect of conversion is between heat energy and any other form of energy, because there can be several forms of energy: mechanical energy, sound energy, light energy, electrical energy, magnetic energy. But why heat energy is important? Uh, because nature has a preference to remain in the heat form. And that's why it has given birth to a subject called thermodynamics, which is again about conversion of energy. But one of the forms has to be heat form. Now, when I rub my hands, see, I'm applying mechanical energy, but very quickly I'm getting heat energy. But the reverse does not happen.
No.
This heat energy cannot be so easily converted into that amount of mechanical energy. When I'm lighting the bulb, in fact, somewhere in a generator, mechanical energy is giving rise to electrical energy that is transmitted, and that electrical energy is getting converted into light energy. And we want that light energy only. But if you touch the bulb, you will find that it is quite hot. This thermal energy we don't require, but it has come. And you have to appreciate that. And when you talk about the degradation of energy or making energy unavailable for useful work, now it is because of this particular feature of nature, its intrinsic value of nature. Now, science and technology, as I say, has revolutionized the world. They have shaped the civilization, but it has brought in its trail some problems also. So let us preserve our environment. We have almost become our own geophysical cycle. There are many examples to substantiate this trend. So before that, let me just bring that discussion to a logical end. Now, what is happening with that heat energy? Nature has a preference for heat energy. So in any heat engine, we say that there are two reservoirs: a hot reservoir and a cold reservoir, and in between you have the mechanical part. And you want the conversion of heat energy to mechanical energy. You don't want conversion of mechanical energy to heat energy, but you have to have that part, and that's why you have to have that exhaust in your car. You have to have that. The less you can do that, more efficient is your engine. So we have to see how we can do that, how we can minimize that and save our environment. Now, what are these trends? Civil engineering work, they ship more soil each year than what is brought by all the rivers of the world to the seas. Industrial emissions, they exceed the total emissions from the volcanoes of the world. Species loss has taken place on the scale of some natural extinctions of the paleohistory. So we have to remember that nature provides everything for our need, but not for our greed. It provides everything for our need, but not for our greed. So somewhere we have to slow down, and we have to practice these 3 R's of conservation. That is, reduce. That is, reduce the use of energy to the extent possible. As I was telling, I'm giving a very simple example. When I was going for inspection to different institutions, so when I'll be walking along the corridor of a college and you'll be seeing the classrooms on your side, fans will be on, nobody is sitting there.
Mm.
So these are certain practices which we need to do. Reduce the use of energy, reuse. That is, normally I reuse all the papers. Like something has been typed, something has been printed on a paper. Now, if it is now not put to use, I use the backside to do rough work, scribbling, and all that. That is reusing. And then again, you use all those papers, you can recycle them and you can create new papers. Because we say that if you tear a paper, it's like cutting a tree.
Cutting a tree, yeah.
So this is a famous message given by Lintas. We have not inherited the earth from our ancestors. We have merely borrowed it from our children. So I thought that this aspect should be very much there in our treasure hunt, learning the treasure. Judicious use of ICT. Well, we cannot think of any discussion without involvement of ICT, and teaching learning transaction cannot be an exception. And we have seen the role of ICT during the pandemic. It created such an existential crisis, and notwithstanding the problems, in fact, still we could keep the show on thanks to ICT, these online classes, the particular form in which I'm delivering the lecture. In fact, being in Indira Gandhi National Open University, we had this sort of exercises and we were well aware, but the implication and the impact it had created, that had happened definitely during the pandemic. And so we need to do very judicious use of information and communication technologies. The first slide which I'm showing to you, it is again of a very interesting project. It is the Rajiv Gandhi project for EduSat supported elementary education. EduSat was the educational satellite. In fact, if you see the chronological development of satellite education in our country, it started with SITE, Satellite Instructional Television Experiment. And then we had the countrywide classroom, where you are having television sets in different colleges and in different institutions. And from 12:30 to 1:30, there would be classes. And jokes apart, those were mostly being used for watching one-day matches. Anyway, but that scheme was there, and that was followed by TDCC, Training and Development Communication Channel, and finally came EduSat. Now, I'm not going into the different features of EduSat for which it was used, but this is one of the applications of EduSat with which I was a part of it. I was a nodal officer of this project, and all the district schools of Shidhi and Rewa in Madhya Pradesh, and some districts in the fringes in the states of Chhattisgarh, MP, and UP were connected through satellite. How now here the students are doing classes. The situation in the primary schools are very similar. That there is only one teacher or say two teachers. So how they can manage classes of the 4 standards, say class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. So when the teacher is physically teaching at one of these classes, the other students are present there and they are attending this virtual class via satellite. So something which was happening through this online situation. And since and before I go to talk about EduSat regarding ICT, I also sort of wanted to make this comparison that why ICT. In fact, if you divide the entire course of civilization into 3 eras of agricultural revolution, industrial revolution and ICT revolution. That is, we say that the civilization has evolved through these three kinds of revolutions. And if you compare them, now CI means capital investment, TRG is training, and RE is the requirement of real estate. Now for agriculture, capital investment is required, training was required during the agricultural revolution, and the requirement of real estate had been huge for agriculture. For industrial revolution, capital investment was more than that of agricultural revolution. Definitely training was required, and real estate, as you saw about Tata's, Nanos, and all the quarrel, etc., which happened in West Bengal. So real estate requirement cannot be ruled out. But when it comes to ICT, well, you need capital investment, you need training, you need very, very sophisticated training, much more training than that was required for industrial and agricultural revolution. But the biggest advantage is that the requirement of real estate is virtually nil. The requirement of real, so that is why ICT, that is why we have to, because the real estate is at a premium, and that is why we have to nurture ICT in a gainful manner. And the caution is there that all that is data is not information, and this is particularly important for the learners. All that is information is not knowledge. All that is knowledge is not wisdom, and all that is wisdom may not be the truth. So the guardian and the teacher will have to guide their students and their words that what is actually information, out of information what is actually knowledge, out of knowledge what is actually, you have to filter out what is wisdom, and the main filtration is out of wisdom what is truth. Now I'll just quickly tell about the EduSat coverage. And there were 7 beams, 5 spot beams in what is called KU band and 2 national beams. The spot beams were used for, say, any particular deliberation is taking place like this from the teaching end, and through EduSat it goes to the remote classroom, and then it gets translated through the KU band scheme. And this can also be done on the radio networking system. SIT and ROT means satellite interactive terminal, and ROT means receive only terminal. From receive only terminal you cannot talk back, but from satellite interactive terminal you can talk back and you can interact with the expert. And if you have a transmitter attached with the SIT or ROT, then from the transmitter you can receive the signal on your transistor. Of course those will be audio signals, you cannot send visual signals to that. So this was the radio networking configuration of EduSat, and what we were using, of course, the visual network configuration, and it was extremely successful, and particularly during the holidays, those were used for the training of teachers. A great application of ICT. And I just wanted to show these slides. Of course, this is not in use now, but just to sensitize that we have done a lot with online training. We have talked a lot about the problems of the lack of electricity, lack of network connectivity. So we need to actually improve the situation to an extent that the learning to live together, that is the rural students, they come at par with the urban students. This should be on level terms. How they manage to get the facility, that should be a challenge before all of us. That is what I feel about the use of ICT. So I just thought of, I have really not explained the use of ICT. It doesn't require any explanation, but I just wanted to sensitize that we keep talking a lot, particularly after making use of ICT during this pandemic. We are talking a lot about how to improve the infrastructure in our country, and that is really where we should focus to make ICT applicable or ICT usable by the end users. The greatest treasure emerging from learning in Indian context is its role in realizing its virtue of unity in diversity. At some stage, I said science is secular.
Yeah.
And we have so many struggles, so many quarrels just to establish secularism in our country. or the secularism in the globe. Now, secularism is a spirit, is a thought, and it is always with our country. You see this particular example when we won the Cricket World Cup in 2011. Dhoni, the captain, is a Hindu. Zahir Khan and Harbhajan Singh, the main strike bowlers, they are Muslim and Sikh, and all playing under a Christian coach, Gary Kirsten. So if we can play together, we can also live together. I mean, I'm not talking about any political
Yeah.
party or their thought, but when the first UPA government had come in the year 2004, you see, a Christian lady, you try to put the names, I'm not giving the names. A Christian lady had proposed the name of a Sikh prime minister, and the oath of secrecy was delivered by a Muslim president. So, this is the situation of our country. And I again remember in 1975 when that's the only time we had won the Hockey World Cup. And Ajit Pal Singh, the captain, was a Sikh, and the two scorers, Aslam Sher Khan and Ashok Kumar, one a Muslim and another a Hindu. And of course, I don't exactly remember the goalkeeper, perhaps Cedric Pereira. I'm not very much sure. He was a Christian. So this is how the secular spirit of our country has grown, and we know how to live together. But often we find aberrations from this, and that gives rise to problem. In fact, as I say, that we should understand, and it has been very aptly explained in our Vedanta, in our Upanishads, that human personality ultimately revolves around a spiritual center. The Bible calls it the light that lighteth every man that cometh into the world. The Sufis call it Noor-e-Ilahi, and the Sikh Gurus call it Ek Onkar. And this is aptly represented in our Upanishads by this sloka, Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam Aditya-varanam Tamasha-parastat Tameva Viditvati Mrittumedhi Nanya Pantha Vidyate Ayvanayo. And these have been assimilated so aptly, as in Upanishad we say, Ekam Sad Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, that is, the truth is one, and it is said in several ways, and it was explained so aptly by Ramakrishna Paramahansadev that there are as many ways as there are paths or faiths. Joto Math, Toto Path. There are as many ways as there are paths, ways as there are paths. So this particular aspect of unity and diversity, that which has been so aptly explained in Gurudev's poem Bharat Tirtha, where India is depicted as a pilgrimage, where people from different castes, creed, religion, different nation, they converge, and which he says is a poetic gist of his famous novel Gora. When this particular poem was published in Provashi Putrika, so the name of the poem is Bharat Tirtha. So there India is considered as a pilgrimage, where Firaq Gorakhpuri also says, Sahezamine Hind par akhwa mein alam ka chirag, kafle baste gaye Hindustan banta gaya. So this should be the ultimate thing about learning to live together, the fourth pillar of learning, and we should be able to imbibe the spirit of unity and diversity. So I thought of concluding with that, and just by reminding you what, in a very simple form, what Pitama Vishwa was telling to Yudhishthir about the post-war scenario. In fact, you know that he had the eternal bliss of leaving his body as per the time of his own wish, and he chose that as the Vishwashtami, that is, I think, 58 days ahead of the equinox, ahead of the autumnal equinox. And he was talking to the Pandavas, particularly to Yudhishthir, about the post-war governance of his very famous motherland, Hastinapur. And whatever he says brings out the hallmark about governance: not to resist, not to desist, but to persist, not to deny, not to defy, but to define, that we should be able to define the issues properly, the problems properly, the questions properly, not to deny, not to defy, but to define. So I think I should stop here. My gratitude to all of you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank
And
you
I
so
really
much.
enjoyed this session.
Thank you very much. That was quite enlightening, and I loved it for various reasons. But let me ask you this one question. So since you've been working so extensively with so many prestigious institutions within the country, where do you see we are in terms of education as far as the rural areas of India are concerned? How far are we in achieving this sort of a unity that you spoke about?
Unfortunately, as per my understanding, we are really far. This ICT, which should have really lessened the gap, but unfortunately, the gap has increased. So the government policies have to be drawn in such a manner, as I told, that they should be brought into the fold of education in a more user-friendly way. And there are problem of connectivity, and but these are not insurmountable. These are not and fund flow has to be made in such a judicious manner that they also get to have the benefit of ICT. This is one thing. And regarding facilities, now the orientation should be different. Again, I'm talking about my favorite issue, or favorite issue about the most, I think, the bane in our society, that is about bane in our, I say, educational schemes, that is doing practical. We always complain about lack of funds or lack of facilities. But why can't we say that experiments, the recent workshops which I'm conducting, now there we are doing experiments, but no experiment is being done in a laboratory, just there in the classroom. And we are doing it in the classroom because that is where we can have so many students together. But we are doing it in such a manner that they can do it at their homes also. So the emphasis will be towards experiential learning.
Yeah.
Theoretical knowledge is very important, but if we can shift the emphasis towards experiential learning, and we can make experimentation and knowing from the society a very important part. I know it's easier said than done, but if we can also connect a proper assessment and evaluation mechanism with that.
Yeah.
Proper means which should be judicious.
Yes.
Which should not be skewed towards giving 30 out of 30, whatever they do in the practicals. So if we can create an orientation, then I think that would lead to reduction of this gap to a great extent. And in my own way, with some of my fellow teachers, we are trying our level best.
And how many, since you've been like a dedicated you've dedicated your life to teaching and education, how many teachers do you see are really willing to take on this cause just as you are?
But there are teachers, there are very, very enthusiastic teachers. Again, in all cross sections, you'll find some who may not be so much willing to come out of their shelves, but there are teachers. Again, this orientation is very important. If you give them orientation, in fact, so incentive is a factor, but incentive does not necessarily mean pecuniary incentive. If you can make this teacher feel, and most of the teachers feel like that after 30 years, if you meet a student and when he or she says that you had taught this particular thing in the class and I've never forgotten. So that is what's more than 1 lakh rupees. So it's not really the pecuniary incentive. Again, the orientation, if you compare with other jobs, other avenues, okay, teaching may not be at par with that. But still, many young boys come for the pride of it, for the enthusiasm, and to be able to disseminate knowledge among the students. They come with that interest. So there are very good teachers. I'm a diehard optimist about that. There are a few who may not fit in this particular group, but you have very good teachers all around, and they
And
can be
also, I
trained.
think with the younger generation, this entire the orientation is kind of shifting because they feel the need to reach out to as many people as possible and to experiment and towards this experimental learning. So I agree with you that there is this shift. My last question and my final question to you would be, how do you see artificial intelligence in the scheme of thing with education and narrowing this gap of diversity?
When I'm not really made an analysis out of that, but whatever I have learned so far, and particularly as regards education, this AI will be able to do the routine jobs. So again, this orientation, because it is a human who will be creating the AI tools,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Be it Chat GPT or anything like that.
Mm.
So it is the orientation which is very much required. And if I repeat the particular issues on which I had focused, that is holistic approach towards education. So they will be able to do routine jobs, and if you need a little aberration from the routine jobs, perhaps whatever I have learned, when I'm not very much sure about my knowledge of AI, I have
We're all
very
learning, so it's like a very and we're still in that infant stage of learning with AI because it's a big debate now with with Chat GPT especially. Coming into existence and playing around with it. So it's very much like, what is the future? Because there is one part of the world which is very well, they have a good access to every single facility. And then there is another part of the world which just doesn't have the facility. So it's is it something that the divide is going to, we're going to see a bigger divide, or how are we going to narrow this gap? Because this right now, this seems to be a clear divide that we are heading
no,
towards.
you're right, and that I had hinted in the answer to the first question raised by you, that the gap is increasing.
Mm.
So, but I think with particular governmental attitude, there should be a political desire. I should say political desire to do that, the right kind of political desire to do that. It can be worked out. We can definitely be able to narrow the gap, but at the moment, it is not appearing to be very easy. This orientation is required. It's not really about the facilities. Facilities can be developed here and there, but it's not really the lack of facility, but the lack of attitude. The attitudinal problem has to be solved. But at the moment, the gap is really very large, and it is showing a tendency towards increasing. But
Yeah.
it's not that it cannot be lessened. As I told you, that I am a diehard optimist. And if we can go along those lines, a holistic approach towards education and development of scientific temper,
Yeah.
real crux of unity in diversity, uh, then of course we'll be able to make judicious use of ICT.
No, I completely am with you. I'm a diehard optimist myself. I believe this is going to, because I feel there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And thank you for all the work that you're doing, because it's very rare to come across people and individuals like you who literally have dedicated a whole life to education in this way. So thank you very much for taking the time out and kickstarting our series and talking to us about this. So it was a pleasure listening to you. And yeah, there's a lot of things to think about. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the opportunity.